I'm Jena Brown.
JP Rindfleisch.
And I am Christine Daigle, JD Barker, and of course, J. Kevin Tomlinson.
We
Welcome
Wow.
to
really
Writers
have
Inc.
that many
I got
personalities.
a lot of
Yeah.
hats to wear this
The writer
episode.
trinity.
That's it. Yeah, JD is in Spain hanging out with the Spanish version of the Wonder Years
Yeah,
crew.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
23 years, he said. That show's
Yeah,
been on in Spain for 23 years. That
that's
just shows you how boring Spanish TV really is.
wow,
23
Kevin.
Okay.
years of the
Oh my
Wonder Years.
God.
You got little Winnie Cooper's now like a 40-year-old. He's
Wow.
wearing like
Yeah, I was actually
juicy
thinking about
pants.
that. Do you think that they just like sort of recast new kids continually to kind of keep that, you know, childlike nostalgia of it? Or do they let the kids grow up and at some point the narrator voice catches up with their adult versions of themselves?
Yeah, I don't know. Didn't they relaunch that show here in the U.S. briefly? Like
Oh,
reboot it with
yeah,
a
I
more diverse
vaguely
cast or something?
remember that.
No clue.
I
Well,
don't, it must not have done well.
yeah,
Yeah.
sounds like it did great.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't want to leave out Christine. She's hooking brains up to computers right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. She's downloading herself to the cloud or something.
So
Well, yeah,
when the AI takes over, you know who to blame.
It will be, it
Christine
will just be
Daigle.
Christine, the
it'll be
AI.
Christine. Yeah, she's working hard to make altered carbon come to life.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
put on a new body sleeve.
Yeah. No, but I do love her work. She does the
Mhm.
brain interfacing and helps with kids who may otherwise not be able to communicate or something along those lines. I'm not, the
Yeah.
expert there, but
Yeah, it helps them like some of them like don't have mobility, I think, so it kind of
yeah.
helps them move and it is really interesting to think about using I've talked to her about it before because I think the brain is just fascinating and like they know like parts of the brain, like where to go for like motor skills and all that, but they don't know the specific parts. And so it's kind of interesting because she said that like there's no like specific mechanism that's like making like that kind of connects the brain that then makes like the thing move.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like so you whatever their thought is, like it's unique and individual, which
Yep.
is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
brain can completely rewire itself to
Yeah.
pick up functions that it maybe lost through injury.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's just a marvel. Like we
Yeah.
we have no understanding of the brain,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you
And
ever heard of
comparatively.
someone who lost like their entire like an entire hemisphere and then like
Yeah,
the brain just re just is like
yep,
okay,
just
we got it.
refigured it out. Yeah. And
yeah,
I've heard too, like even different languages sit in different places on average in the brain. And so
Yeah.
like I know a guy, there was a reporter, whatever, about a guy who knew Chinese and English and he had a stroke and he lost all of his English, I think, or it was the other way around.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's because like the way that those languages is structured and shaped, even the written language itself is totally in different sectors of the brain. I just
Yeah.
find it fascinating.
Oh, it's
yeah.
incredibly fascinating. It's just I know I get why people get obsessed with it and like want to like crack the code of like the human brain because it is there's so many questions and it's like it just works and you're like yeah but how does it just
Yeah.
work like how
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Shall we go into
Well,
the news?
well, I
yeah
guess so.
I
Yeah,
guess
let's just,
we
we got
can.
to talk about something. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's
So
roll in.
speaking into diving into great things, I suppose. Character AI launches AI-powered books feature, which lets users play inside classic literature like Pride and Prejudice and The Great Gatsby. Character AI has launched a books feature that lets users interact with the characters from public domain classics like Pride and Prejudice and The Great Gatsby, turning those stories into a kind of AI roleplay experience. The company says this could make classics more accessible to younger readers, but critics question whether chatting with AI characters is really a meaningful substitute for actually reading the books. The bigger concern is that this frames AI as the solution to reading engagement when teachers, librarians, and better access to diverse books may be far better ways to connect young readers with literature.
I think this is so fascinating. I actually don't hate it. I do think it's an interesting way of using AI. And I kind of thought about, do you guys remember the Oregon Trail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I kind of
I died
remember,
of dysentery. I don't know if you guys.
oh yeah, everyone does. But I remember my parents being kind of grumbly about like teaching through a video game way
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of that where it's like, well, this isn't how kids should learn, but it's sort of an interesting thing. And I think that if like authors, like if this became another avenue, like a Hollywood, it's not a movie deal, but now it's a character AI deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting way of interacting with a book.
I don't know that this is true of everybody, but I know that a certain segment of the populace learns from, they learn best when there's some sort of spatial element involved.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, and I'm like this, like I actually learn things and retain things better if I can associate it with a location
Yeah.
somehow. And
Mhm.
that's how the whole like memory palace idea works,
Mhm.
is that
Yeah.
you create like a physical or you create a virtual space in your head and you associate memories with each room and you got quirky little things that help you remember
Yeah.
Mhm.
that this is in that room.
Yeah.
Um, I look at it through that lens. I feel like because it's a funny thing. I was sitting on a sofa with a laptop playing World of Warcraft like 10 years ago
Mhm.
when an episode of Psych was on. I can remember every syllable of that scene and exactly where I was in that game as if I were sitting right in front of it. Random memory, but that's the way
Yeah.
it worked for me. Like it
Yeah.
connected those two ideas for me. And so I feel like that's the kind of thing that could happen when it comes to games like this involved in learning. But I still
Yeah.
think the
Yeah.
kid should read the book.
Well, I think
Yeah.
kids should read the book, but I don't know that. I think that there's always been a weird disconnect with video games and like people's actual understanding. Like people, oh, if people play video games, like for a long time it was that, it's going to dumb them down and
Yeah.
they actually have like better hand-eye coordination, they have better dexterity. Kids that grew up playing video games tend to have like better like, problem-solving skills, and there's all these things that happen
Yeah.
because of video games that everyone was like they're gonna rot your brain, but they actually didn't.
Yeah.
Right. There
Yeah.
was
I think
research recently. I'll say, go ahead, JP.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that like if this is going to exist, it's better to frame it as not a replacement, but a supplement or as like
Yeah.
an additive feature. I mean,
Yeah.
if this is going to exist, then bring it into the classroom, have the kids read the book and then have them collectively
Right.
interact
Right.
so that they can critically think about it and they're not just like playing with this and enjoying the responses, but like what do those responses actually mean in reference to the
Yeah.
text? Or have them play with it separately and then sort of bring back their learnings to the class so that they can discuss
Mhm.
it. But I think that like if these sort of tools are going to exist, let's not make it an either or, but a how can we use this as a
Yeah.
tool? And I think
Yeah.
that that would be the best way to approach it.
Yeah. Reinforcement and assistive technology rather than a
Well,
replacement.
it always drives me crazy when everyone just wants to it's like they want to take the fun out of learning. And I kind of feel like, like listen, it's no secret that like I appreciate the classics, but man, like they're a slog to get through. Like they are not my favorite. Um, and I've read a lot of them and I can appreciate them, but like my appreciation and the fun of it would probably go a lot deeper if it was like, all right, get through this, and then you can like, talk to your favorite character. You can do these, and that actually would make it far more enjoyable for me. And I just sort of I cringe every time like when people talk about learning and it's like they just want to take the joy out of it, and I just feel like there's a little bit of that here too.
Yeah.
Next up, BookCon 2026, where fans reign supreme. BookCon showed just how intense book fandom has become. Huge crowds, long lines, and even chaotic scenes over limited arcs, with some fans waiting 45 minutes and still leaving empty handed. Romance and romantasy dominated, with readers splendidly spending heavily on special editions and indie books, showing the enthusiasm, especially among Gen Z readers. The big takeaway is that the book events are becoming high energy fan spaces that are great for community and sales, but struggling with logistics as demand and fandom continue to grow. Dun,
I
dun, dun.
has anyone been to BookCon? Did they go before?
Yeah,
I haven't.
That place has always been. I was kind of
it's
laughing at
nuts.
everyone just being like it's so crazy, and it's like, did you go? Like BookCon was always like sort of like the gladiator pit of book
Yeah,
events. Like
yeah, yeah. It's one of the conferences that's actually modeled more on the kind of like the technology conferences and the not
Mhm.
the big ones where they do the
Yeah.
big announcements and stuff, and they have like
Yep.
crazy prizes and giveaways and things like that. It's always modeled on that, not
Yeah,
like
and
the author
everyone
conferences that.
lining up for the arc before it's even been
Yeah.
announced and like
Yeah,
trying to get their place, and yeah, it gets crazy.
Yeah.
yeah. I like it for being reader centric.
Yep.
Most of the
Yeah.
Agreed.
conferences I go to are very author centric. With this one, you can actually you know, engage with readers and not just your readers, but in
Yeah.
fact, probably not with your readers because you're probably, if you're like me, you have no readers there. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it
but
used
the
to be,
thousands and thousands of others.
what was it? It was connected to, so they had like the industry one and then they had BookCon, but I don't remember
Yeah.
what the industry one was called.
I
Book
can't.
Expo, maybe? Is that
What
right?
was it?
Book Expo? Was it?
Was that it? That might be it. Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
don't
Anyway,
recall. There's too many of
I
these things.
I do
Yeah.
like that having both, but yeah, reader I like the idea of a reader Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I really like that, we're seeing a successful book con because I think that there's been several reader centric conferences that have been pretty spectacularly failed
Yes.
conferences through
Yes.
various means, usually not due to attendance, but usually due to the background of trying to get it set up. So it's nice hearing this. And like locally, we have a couple of events that are just nuts. Like we have a boozy book fair that people like I didn't expect it to be shoulder to shoulder for 3 hours straight in a space where we eventually had to move outside just because of how many people were there. Um,
Wow.
and like that kind of shift is really nice to see. And I think that a lot of it is just the fact that people get to show off the physical books that they get.
Yeah.
And I think that it's nice to continue to see that as a really popular.
Next time I do a reader facing conference, I'm going to put all my books on the table and sell them. And I'm going to say, in one of these books is hidden a check for $50,000.
Ooh.
And
I
this to
think you
let
actually have
everybody.
to provide a check for 50,000.
Oh, no, I don't, I wasn't going to do that.
Oh, I see.
It's a monopoly check
It's just going
or
to,
not
it's
in
not,
USD.
it's not a real check.
Yeah.
I see.
I think that goes
Um,
well with the last piece
there,
of news too.
if not some legal things there's definitely some ethical or moral things that maybe we should workshop this a little bit more off
Well,
camera.
just
I
don't
don't speak
associate
your
with it.
gibberish moon language, Jenna.
Well, if you want a Kevin Tumlinson $5 million book or rare books worth $3 million, well, there's ones that've been stolen from a former MoMA president recovered. So these books were stolen in the 1980s from a collector, John Hay Whitney, and they have finally resurfaced after someone tried to sell them in New York. It's probably Kevin. More than 40 years later. The recovered items include major literary artifacts like signed copies of Finnegan's Wake and letters from John Keats, with one collection alone valuing around 2 million. The wild twist was that the person selling them likely inherited the books and wasn't involved in the theft, showing how stolen literary artifacts can circulate quietly for decades before being rediscovered.
Wild. Yeah,
So,
this is
Kevin,
crazy. Yeah, I
why'd
know.
you do
And
this?
Kevin is on the East Coast now. He's very close
Yeah.
to New York. He could
Yeah.
easily have done this.
I was getting
Yeah.
my hair cut at that time.
Mm-hmm. Sure you were.
Yeah. This is like one of those things that's pretty crazy. Like stolen in the 80s and like it
Yeah.
just now comes. And I think the police said that the person who tried to sell them isn't a suspect,
Yeah.
that he inherited the books.
Mm-hmm.
And so he
Mm-hmm.
thought they were like legit.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would hurt actually to do that. But John Grisham actually wrote. He's got a book called Camino Island,
Hmm.
and it involves these guys stealing a bunch of F. Scott Fitzgerald, you know, early draft manuscripts, and then selling them in the black market. And so he did a deep dive into how all that works, and it's kind of fascinating how that market works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Selling these pilfered manuscripts. Yeah,
Well,
I don't know.
it's like art though. I mean, like you can't
Yeah,
sell it.
it's
So
hard to
like,
move. Yeah. If you don't have like you're not taking this down to your local fence, like
right.
your
Yeah.
the pawn shop isn't going to help you with this thing.
No.
You're going to have to find somebody who specializes in this, and the risks are really high. So, but this person didn't know that and wasn't trying. They were just like, hey, I scored, I got a
Yeah.
whole bunch of
Yeah.
I can finally retire.
Yeah, well,
And
they went to legitimate, like actual booksellers too. Like
yeah,
they weren't
Yeah.
even trying to do anything on the shady side. They were just like, hey, like my grandpa died and gave these to me.
yeah,
Well,
I
turns
go
out,
I'd take it straight to Pawn Stars, let that big bald guy tell me that they're illegal, get my reaction on camera.
yep. Well, in November, Kevin, go find some pilfered goods and I'll take you down to Pawn Stars.
Way ahead of you. Got a
There you go.
whole storage unit full of that stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Kevin, who do we have on today?
Well, today we're chatting with Anthony Horowitz. He's a prolific British novelist and screenwriter, famous for his gripping mysteries and thrillers. He's written over 50 books, including the best-selling Alex Rider teen spy series. He's also penned some official James Bond and Sherlock Holmes novels. Today, we're going to be talking about his new novel, A Deadly Episode. Listen in with Anthony Horowitz. I'm very excited about this conversation, and I've been informed that we have chatted before, and I do remember actually us chatting before. But welcome back to the show. Welcome to Writers Inc.
Thank you for having me back, Kevin.
It's always a pleasure. Now, I've always been a big fan of your work, of course. So, and one thing that's interesting to me, we're going to talk about your new book, but one thing that's interesting to me is that you cover the entire spectrum of writing, as far as I've been able to tell. You write books, but you also write for film and TV, right? And you were a journalist. Are you still a journalist? Are you still an
I
active
do
journalist?
occasional journalism, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got the whole thing covered. How does that all work together? How do you keep those tops spinning?
I'm basically a one-trick pony. I mean, all I can do is write.
Yeah.
And because I recognize that, I'm interested in trying to write as many different things as I can and in as many different fields. I can add to the list now, but I've started writing poetry. Don't
Hmm.
worry, I'm not going to recite anything, but I just find that I read a lot of poetry. I love Philip Larkin and Auden and many other poets, and I started to think maybe I could express myself in verse a little bit. So I'm doing that. I've written a play this year, which is something I've done in the past. But writing is an adventure. Writing is something that is always changing and morphing into something else, and I love pushing the boundaries and just exploring new fields.
Yeah. What poetry is probably the one type of writing I've not put too much energy
Well, the trouble
into.
with poetry is that it's very difficult to tell between what the difference is between a really bad poem and a fairly
Yeah.
good poem. And I'm talking about my own work here. I
Yeah.
write something and I take a lot of time and care over it, but is it any good? I'm too nervous to show it to anybody because I have a worry that it might not be. Books,
Yeah.
TV, film, I sort of know what I'm doing.
Yeah. What now? What do you prefer? What's the type of writing you like the
I
most?
suppose the writing I most enjoy at the moment is murder mystery. I just love the sort of, having lucked into this character of Hawthorne and started the adventures, which and now having done six of those books, I'm on to the seventh already. And I sort of just enjoy that world. I've always liked the sort of beguilement and the sort of the léger de main, the sleight of hand that comes with writing murder mystery. And I like playing those sorts of games with my readers. And so having also done the series with Susan Ryland that began with Magpie Murders, Moonflower, then Marble Hall, I feel very comfortable, very at home.
Yeah. Now you've written some books that were set in pre-established universes, we'll say, like Sherlock Holmes, James Bond. things like that. Do you find, is that more constricting? Does it, or restricting, I guess is a better word. Does that restrict you more, or are you?
Um, No, not really. I mean, in a sense, it focuses me down. I mean, and it is restricting if you want to use that word, in the sense
Mhm,
that if I'm writing Sherlock Holmes, I want to really sort of obey the rules that Conan Doyle set down. And if it's
mhm.
James Bond, then it's Ian Fleming, trying to listen to their voice, trying to write as them, to write books that they would enjoy if they were around to read them. But at the same, so that is, I suppose, restricting. But at the same time, to be given these universes as a gift to me. So instead of starting with a blank page, I have the greatest detective ever created, the greatest friendship in any
Right.
literature that I've ever read, and the greatest spy if I'm over on that side of the fence. And that is an incredible gift to a writer to say, here we are, live in our world and go wherever you want to go and do what you want to do. So I restrict myself, but at the same time, the opportunity is, I think, endless.
Do you find yourself maybe borrowing from those universes a little for your own work,
Oh,
or?
all the time in my writing. I
Yeah.
mean, the great thing about reading, I began reading seriously when I was about 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
And one of the great first loves of mine were those two books, the Sherlock Holmes short stories and the novellas and the James Bond books, as much as the films. And when you read as a kid, you are, I think, acting like a sponge. You're not just reading these characters and these stories, you are absorbing them into your bloodstream. And
Right.
when I'm writing Alex Rider, the teenage spy that I created, that I wrote 14 books about, the same incidentally, the same number as James Bond books.
Yeah.
Um, one who I have to admit to my borrowing and to my inspiration, which was the master, Fleming.
Oh yeah. So yeah, okay, so you brought up the Alex Rider books, and I wanted to ask you this. I think I wanted to ask you this before, because I know writers who switch genre. That's common, but you actually switch entire audiences.
It's a bridge that's not that easy to cross, and some writers have not managed to do that transition.
Yeah.
I made the decision to stop writing kids' books because I felt that I was getting too far away from my audience. That how
Okay.
could I, now at the age I am and the world we live in, understand what's happening inside the heads of 10 to 15-year olds? And I
Yeah.
thought it was almost presumptuous to write for them. There was a secondary thought as well, which was all the 10 to 15-year olds that I had written for when I was writing Alex Rider. I didn't want to lose them. And in my head, I thought, well, if I start writing for grown-ups, maybe
Right.
they'll come to the party. And it is true that sometimes when I'm doing TV shows, if I'm on there or working on my own TV productions, somebody who is back, behind stage, working behind the camera or whatever, will come and say to me, I used to read the Alex Rider books. And I always think it's a fantastic thing to have been a molecule in their life and still to be working with them now.
Yeah.
But that was a motivation for me, and it's a decision I'm very glad I took because Magpie Murders was a work of about 8 years before I
Yeah.
could actually write that book and persuade myself I was good enough to do it.
Have you ever thought about trying it again though, going back to the Alex Rider books?
No, I think
Maybe Alex Rider all grown up.
I think that the world of kids has changed, and I did have a thought at one stage of revisiting Alex, age 24, 25,
Yeah. Yeah.
and looking at how damaged he was after all these terrible adventures and all the things I'd thrown his way had turned him into a very, very troubled 20-something-year-old. But the funny thing is, my publishers had no interest at all, and I think they were right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one world. I've left it behind me, and now I've got plenty of work to do with Hawthorne and with more Susan Ryland coming eventually, and other books that I have in my head.
Yeah. So you brought up television, your work in television, and that ties in with you chose that as a theme for the new book, A Deadly Episode, which is releasing the 28th of April,
You
I
know better than I
believe.
do.
I think I do. I think I got it. So let's talk about a bit about that book. What's sort of the story behind the story there?
Well, I feel very comfortable writing about worlds that I know. So,
Yeah.
I've done theatre, I've done potholing, I've done the law, I've done areas that I have visited and which I know a little bit about. And of course, because I work in film and TV, it seemed inevitable that one book would eventually end up slap bang in the middle of all that. And the setup here is that somebody has bought the rights to the first book in the series. The Word is Murder. They're turning it into a film. I am not the writer. They don't want me to do the job. But I visit the set with Hawthorne. And while we're there, or just after we leave, an actor is murdered. In fact, it's the actor playing Hawthorne. So Hawthorne ends up pretty much investigating his own murder. And when I ran that thought through my head, Hawthorne investigates his own murder, it made me smile, and I knew I had to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fun premise, actually.
Well, the other side of it is that it allowed me to revisit Hastings, which is where this book takes place, which is a sort of fairly sort of eccentric seaside town on the south coast of the United Kingdom. And that's where we shot our Foyle's War all those years ago. We spent a lot of time down there actually shooting Foyle's War. And so I know it very well from that. And I liked also the idea of revisiting my own past in this book.
Did you literally revisit? Did you go there
I
physically?
certainly did. The book opens in a sort of a strange area up near the art gallery, right on the front of the coast, and that is where we did indeed shoot some scenes of Foyle's War.
Okay, so all right, when you are looking at an area like that, and you're going to use that in a book, I mean, what are the details that you zero in on? What's the stuff that you look for that you want to include?
I'm looking for the town to be a character in the book. I think it's not enough just to say, here's a church, here's some houses, here's a street and everything. I think towns have a unique sort of characteristic, a sort of personality of their own.
Yeah.
Hastings is a very special place. It's quite shabby, it's very colorful, it's full of eccentrics, it's very beautiful in parts. It has a lot of Victorian history. Hawthorne stays at a place called the Victoria Hotel, which Queen Victoria actually visited when she was, was before she was queen. And I love that sense of British history sort of informing the story a little bit. Plus the fact that, in the Second World War, it's the reason we decided to set our foil there. It was the real front line in the war. And I say in the book how you're sitting in this strange little town, which is separated only about 50, 60 or miles from Europe and from France. But that stretch of water has frequently saved this country. It's the reason we don't speak German or Spanish or anything else. We managed to somehow cling on to our liberty and our life.
Right. So diving back into the book, I just want to make sure that we're covering, the whole. What was it that inspired this? I mean, did you have this in mind? I mean, when did this idea occur to you? I guess.
I'm trying to think what the original inspiration for it was. I think it was just in there. I think actually I can tell you.
Okay.
Jill Green and myself, Jill Green is my wife, and she's also the producer of all my TV work, had been working for quite some time on the idea of a Hawthorne TV series. So that was the inspiration. And what's rather funny is that even as I was writing A Deadly Episode, I was also, just have final parts of it, the final edit, I'd also started work on the screenplay of The Word is Murder. So, I mean, I know this sounds crazy meta that I'm writing a book about a TV series of my books, while at the same time I'm running a TV series of my books for Jill. But that said, it was a sort of a natural progression. We're hoping that Hawthorne will be on TV screens, maybe the year after next, if all goes well. You never know. It's tough times in TV land right now.
Yeah.
But that was our aim and our thing. And so when I began to think about that, I thought, well, that is a perfect setting for what I'm writing about. And I did like the sort of hall of mirrors effect that you get in that of, as I say, of what's real, what's fiction, what's a real TV show, what's the one I'm writing, with my wife, etc. So it's also, I know TV and film. Actually, it's not a TV series in the book. It's a feature film that's being made. But I know these people pretty well. I've met so many directors. I've met actors. I've met producers, props people, costumes people. It's a world that's very familiar to me. And I wanted to revisit it with a bit of a smile, with my tongue in cheek, and not settle scores or anything like that, but just have a bit of fun with some of the people that I've met along the way.
Yeah, I feel like I've attempted a couple of times to adapt some of my books to screenplays, and it's just what I find difficult is that I can't figure out what to exclude, and what which bits are the most important bits, and what will play great on screen versus what do I think is really important for the viewer to know Have you found a challenge like that in
Well,
adapting
not
your work?
exactly, because in this instance, I made I think the smart decision of I'm not the guy who's adapting the book in this case. So in
Right.
A Deadly Episode, the writer is a lady called Shakira Harris,
Yeah, yeah.
who is she hates detective stories. She's an eco warrior. She wants to write about sort of green issues inside this murder mystery story, and she sort of twists everything to make it her own vehicle. And I
Yeah.
had a lot of fun with sort of me, the frustrated author sitting on the sidelines, unable to do anything as my masterpiece is turned into some sort of, the film never gets made anyway, so it's a disaster whichever way you look at it. But when
Yeah.
I'm adapting my own screenplays, the answer to your question is no. I mean, it's a much easier and more fluid process, and I have an instinct about what has to come out. Somebody once said that adapting your own book is a bit like killing your baby, because
Yeah.
the book is perfect and everything is in its correct place, and you then realize, no, I can't do this, and that's got to go, and I want to do something else here, and it is sort of unraveling all the work you've already done.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much of my stories actually take place like directly in the character's head rather than
That's
action on
not
the
so easy to
screen.
adapt.
Yeah, it's a little challenging. Do you have tips? Let me know. What should I be doing here?
I think another time, another podcast.
All right. Oh, well, it is a writer's podcast.
If you really want me to give you a couple of thoughts, I
Oh,
will. I
yeah,
mean,
go ahead. Yeah,
okay,
people are listening.
I thought you were joking. I mean, if
No,
you're going to
no.
adapt your own work, you've got to start by thinking of the new product as being a completely new piece
Yeah,
of art or of work or whatever. You can't nail your book to the screen. It isn't going to happen. And you have
right.
to look at it in a very, not as a writer, almost as a producer. What can you afford? What is possible to make?
Yeah,
What if you've got three car chases in your book, then you should realize you can only really probably have one car chase in the movie or in the TV series, because A, they're expensive, and B, they're repetitive. So it is a sort of a case of forgetting how much you love your book and treating it as simply the blueprint of a new piece of work.
yeah.
Um, and that's, for example, I'll give you a very good example. Magpie Murders. We've got a story about an editor called Susan Ryland who's going to meet a detective called Atticus Punch. She's not going to meet him. She's going to read about him in a book. Now, we cast Leslie Manville in the script, in the series. She's one of the world's greatest actresses, really hot property as well. Very, very hard to get her to say yes. She said yes. In the book, she doesn't turn up until page 250. So in the
Okay.
film, in the TV series, she's not going to turn up for 3 episodes. And
Yeah,
you're suddenly faced with a sort of madness. You cannot cast Leslie Manville in a 6-part TV series and not have her turn up until halfway through. That is simply ridiculous. So you have to just be cold-blooded and say, I'm going to change things so she is in it from episode 1 all the way through to episode 6. Now, how the hell am I going to make that work? I don't know, but I've got to. And that's the
yeah,
process.
yeah. Yeah, that's most of the fun, trying to solve little problems like that, right?
Not a
That's
little.
so. Have you seen adaptations that you really like other than your own work? Are there things that
Oh
inspired
God, yeah.
you?
I mean, there
Yeah,
are some of the greatest movies
yeah,
ever made. Peter Jackson with The Lord of the Rings,
of course. Yeah,
or the Shawshank Redemption out of the Stephen King novella, one of the greatest movies.
excellent.
And that
Yeah,
turns a fairly short 100, 200 page story into a massive film, and it's so brilliantly directed and performed and everything else. They're everywhere. Lawrence of Arabia, The Seven Pillars of Wisdom, which is a book of 1,000 pages long, turned into that epic movie by David Lean. There
right.
are and The Third Man by Graham Greene. I'm not sure it was a novel to begin with, but nonetheless, it is now a novel and a film. And put them side by side, and they're incredible.
Yeah, the most recent example I can think of is Hail Mary, which I
Haven't
think is
seen it
a
yet. I mean, I'm looking
yeah,
forward to it. Just opened it.
yeah, yeah. It's excellent. And the book was excellent too. So you write about a lot of murder, and I gotta wonder if does there ever come a point? Because in my stuff, I start to not really run out of ideas, but I start to see that like I'm falling back on patterns. And so I could probably just create a formula and just fill in the blanks, and that starts to bug me. So I try to do something new. Do you have an experience like that, having written so many like murder
Absolutely,
mysteries?
I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Another reason why I stopped writing 40 Alex Rider books at 14 books
Yeah.
was for exactly that reason. I could have written 35 Alex Rider books. The formula was exactly there. A teenage
Yeah.
spy gets sent on a mission, meets bad guys, has terribly dangerous things happen to him, and somehow wins. I could write that on and on and on and on. But as I think I'd said earlier, writing for me is an adventure. And what I love doing is exploring new territories. I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as I finish Hawthorne #7, which I've already started, the book after that isn't going to be a murder mystery at all. I'm doing a historical thriller. And
Okay.
I'm so excited about the chance to get away from, enough dead bodies already, enough people asking questions about how did they get there. I mean, I'm not falling out of love with murder mystery. It's still my favorite genre, and I love
Yeah.
reading it and writing it and talking about it. But there are other things to do, and so
Yeah.
that's a book that will give me a bit, give me a new language and a new sense of pace and of world. I mean, I can't wait to do it.
Is that something you do from time to time, just sort of cleanse the palate, give you a fresh start
Yeah, if
on
you
the?
look at my work over a great many years now, you'll see that it has encompassed a lot of different genres. I mean, I've written humorous books, I've done horror stories, I've done spy stories with Alex Rider, I've done now, with the adult novels, historical books. Sherlock Holmes and Bond were both set in the past. And then these metaphysical books like A Deadly Episode and the other ones in this series, which are doing something else again. And as I said to you, we, all writers, just need to keep ourselves refreshed.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
spend so long on our own in a room. I'm speaking to you now somewhere in the basement of where you
Yeah.
live. I'm in the office where I seem to spend nearly all my life behind my desk.
Yeah.
And it's a question of not letting that oppress you, of finding a way to free yourself.
Yeah. So you do all your writing in that office. You're not one of these,
No, I
like I'm
write
a
everywhere.
wanderer.
I write
Yeah, same.
everywhere. I write. I have a little home in Suffolk. I go up there. It's more a little shed on the edge of a river, and I work there a lot. And I work abroad. I work in cafes. I work
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
trains, buses, anywhere. I tend to use a fountain pen and paper rather than a computer for my first draft. And
Okay.
that's actually, I don't need to plug it in. I don't need a desk. I've got my lap and a fountain pen. I'm laughing.
You've already answered the question I was going to ask what your process was. So
Well,
why
the
why
first
handwriting?
draft, the first draft in ink has always been my way. I mean,
Yeah.
not the whole book. Sometimes only maybe half of it is written in ink. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, I love nibs. I love fountain pens. I love the flow of ink. I have this theory that all the great writers that I admire, particularly the 19th century writers, didn't have blood. It's not blood that unites them. It's that other liquid, the blue
Yeah.
one. It's
Yeah.
ink, and I want to write like Dickens did, or like Thomas Hardy or Jane Austen
Yeah.
with a pen. Uh,
Yeah. I don't know. I fall in love with that idea from time to time. I've got a book right now. I'm typing all the way. I'm absolutely a typist. But I started writing something recently by hand, and it's been a change. It's been very different. And so I don't know if you flipped back and forth at all. Have you flipped from handwriting to
oh, of
writing?
course, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do both.
Do you notice the difference? I mean, what
Oh,
is there
very
some,
much so. I
how
just think that
significant
with a
is that?
fountain pen, you are closer to your work. You're
Yeah,
more inside it in a strange way. There's less technology between your mind and the page. And the big thing also is that whatever you write is forever. If you delete something on your computer, it's evaporated, it's gone, and you
that's right.
can't keep every single change because you'd go crazy. But if you, at the end of the day, or if I, at the end of the day, feel that there was something I wrote at the beginning of the day and it actually was better than I thought, I can dive into my waste paper basket, my trash can, and I can pull it out. I find the piece of paper, unfold it. Yeah, there's the sentence I want, and I can put it in. And also, I love some of the sort of the mechanics of writing. Look, I'm going to show you something. How can you resist writing with an ink like this? Do you see what it's called?
Oh, Writer's Blood. That's
Isn't
nice.
that
Yeah.
fantastic? Writer's Blood is my favorite ink.
Yeah, so I'm going to write with Writer's Blood. I'm going to be sipping Writer's Tears, the
Well, it's
whiskey.
a very fine whiskey, which I'm fun too.
That's fun. Yeah, I fall in love with that stuff. I'm sure you're the same way. I fall in love with that. I tried fountain pens. They're not for me. It looks like somebody had a very bad accident on the page. So I have my favorite little, ballpoint pens that I use. But
That's good too. But I just,
yeah,
as I say, this is my connection to the past, and
yeah,
I have an enormous number of pens. I have about something like 25 pens. If any of your listeners are thinking about getting a pen, let me say to you, don't need to spend a lot of money to get a good fountain pen. You can spend
yeah,
maybe something in the area of $70 or $80, and I have very, very nice pens that work really
yeah.
well at that sort of price range.
It's worse than a drug habit though. Like once you start
Oh, tell me
investing
about
in
it.
pens and paper, like I have this obsession with paper and notebooks. I try new ones all the time. I've spent a ridiculous amount of money on notebooks. So,
But you know as well as I do that stationery shops are like treasure troves to
oh yeah.
writers. You go there and God, do I need some? Yeah, I must get some more sticky tape. I must get some more post-it notes and another pad. Let's try that one over there. And what? Yeah, I'll get a few more magic markers or whatever. The whole works. I love
So
spending money on stationery.
is that part of the allure for you? Did you become a writer so you had an excuse to use pen and ink?
No, it's the other way around. I became a writer, and then for anything that helps me to write, became my friend.
Yeah, yeah. When did you become a writer? When
When
was
I
the
was
birth of
10,
this? Yeah,
that's when I knew I wanted to write.
yeah.
And I'd written by then my first play, and I wrote through my teens. I was published for the first time when I was 21.
Yeah, that sounds right. That fits you very well. I had that sense about you. I was very young too when I started. It's an
Well, it's something,
obsession.
I think one of the great joys about being a writer is finding that light, finding that sort of, that moment when you just feel whole, that you discover yourself, that this is the reason. I was born to write. I know that sounds a little bit like a cliche, but I'm sure
No,
you understand that completely. That sense of you put a pen in your hand and you start thinking about, the next sentence, the next paragraph, the next chapter, and it's all there in the atmosphere around you. I sometimes say that we writers, are like radio receivers, that we are
yeah,
we are sitting there and somebody is beaming the signal to us, whether it's a thriller or a murder mystery or a joke or a poem or whatever it is. It comes from somewhere. And I'm not a religious person necessarily, but I do believe in something out there. And I
yeah.
sometimes think that we are connected to it in a sort of strange way.
Yeah, no, I feel the exact same way because it just when I sit down, maybe you're like, I'm sure you are like this too. I get this sense from you, Anthony, but you sit down and you start that process. I don't know if you have the same issue I do. Occasionally, I have trouble getting started only because I have so much I want to say. And then once I start the writing, I practically disappear. It just flows right onto the page. I sense that you are probably very
So I
similar.
do know that very well. I call it
Yeah.
immersion, that moment when you
Yeah.
stop thinking about the world around you and you're simply inside the story, describing everything you see around you, everything you hear around you, everything you feel, you are inside the story.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have to ask you then, what's the absolute best? Every writer gets this question, so I'm sorry, this shouldn't be sprung on you, but what's the absolute best advice you would give to somebody who wants to do this for a living or for any reason?
Well, I'd say three things. Four. One, read. If you don't
Yeah.
read, you're never going to be a great writer. You've got to read. You've got to read what other people are doing and learn from them, or make sure or decide you can do better than them. That's the first thing, is read. Second thing is enjoy your writing. Enjoy it. Don't do it because you feel you have to. If it's not going well, don't be afraid to get up from your desk and go for a walk. I have a dog. A dog is a great tool for a writer
Yeah.
because it gets me away from my desk every single day for 2 hours of walking in the sunshine and thinking about my work. The third thing is to enjoy your writing. Oh, I've already said that one. The third one, I guess, is to believe in yourself. That's the hardest thing to get for, especially when you're starting off, and that is to actually believe in what you're doing and believe that you will get to where you want to be. Never lose your confidence, because I always say there's only one difference between a successful and an unsuccessful writer. The unsuccessful writer stops. And the last thing, I suppose, is write. Is don't talk about writing. That's the thing I really get sort of slightly annoyed about it. Someone says, I want to write, I love to write, I'm thinking about writing, I've got an idea for a book. Don't be like that. Sit down, get the pen out or your computer on and get started. There you are. That's all my advice.
That's great advice. No, I think that's absolutely the right advice, and I think I'm hoping that everybody listening is paying close attention to that, and maybe they can replicate the kind of success that you're having with your crazy all over the place career. Uh, I'm
Well, thank you. I think, obviously a modicum of luck comes to all of us, and but it's luck, it's endurance, it's so much more. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's also such a joy. I think to myself of all the things that I could have done in this world, some of which might have been damaging and destructive. I've chosen something which at its best just gives pleasure to people, and that's not a bad way to spend your life.
That's an excellent way to spend your life. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us. I was right by the way, it is April 28th when the book comes releases, a deadly episode. Uh, I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'm going to take a good solid look at it. Thank you for being on the show.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
This is my second time talking to Anthony, but I kind of forgot that. I don't know if you guys picked that up from the interview.
Like
Definitely didn't pick it up.
I talked to so many famous writers that but he remembered me. That's the important part of the story. So
yeah.
But he called
right.
he calls himself a one-trick pony who only knows how to write, but he deliberately stretches that single skill into like a multitude, like poetry, plays. Yeah, I was impressed by that. But if you were a writer who felt trapped in one genre or one format, how do you think that leaning harder into that kind of trick, that one trick, would across different fields? Do you think that would unlock opportunities for you, or keep your voice fresh?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Go ahead, Jena.
Well, I think it's like, I mean, when you work out, you don't like just work out, your biceps, you don't like just work, you have to like work out your whole body. And I think that, writing, I think that when you try to expand out and like kind of challenge yourself with writing, you end up like finding more inspiration and creativity. Like you guys were talking about like how many ways can, a murder mystery go?
Mm-hmm.
But I've talked to a lot of different authors, and like a lot of the advice they'll tell you is to like read outside of your genre, because like you never know what's gonna get pulled into like your creative process and your way of thinking. And I think that doing it the opposite way, writing, is going to do the same thing, I would think.
Yeah. And I think too, like if you have sort of figured out what you like to write in or what your niche is or whatever, mostly mine is, cozy queer fantasy. There's so many ways to present that to the world. It's not just novels, but you can do serialized fiction, which is how I learned like the best way that I write when I'm writing alone, is by doing it chapter by chapter and fully fleshing it out, getting that published ready, then moving to the next. That just works the best for me. Had I not tried out serials, I would have probably been stuck on, that first draft and, assuming that I had to write the whole first draft without touching it or editing it. But that just turned out it wasn't my process. I also really enjoy doing some local events, and they sometimes are like, hey, we need someone to do some poetry, so then I get to spend the day and just like write up some poetry, and I enjoy the pressure of having to do that and being able to sort of like play with still my brand but in a different format. So I really enjoy all that because I think it pushes me to be better.
I've really embraced dirty limericks. Here's a few for you right now.
Oh no, we're good.
No. Oh,
no.
I'll save those for later. I'll put those on the website.
Sure. I know you named this Writers Inc. After Dark, but I don't think it really is.
Let's not. Sorry, Alex.
Welcome to Writers Inc. After Dark, everyone.
No, I mean, I do a lot of freelancing, and I think it's interesting. I've always actually really enjoyed reviewing books, just because it forces you to look at, I read differently when I'm reviewing a book, and when I read differently, you're noticing other things more, and so then you're thinking about like, oh, how did they do this, and kind of what's the underlying thing in there. And I think that when you do that regularly, it just bleeds into your writing. Like there's just no way it doesn't.
Yeah. Are there so when you engage in other types of writing,
Mhm.
do you sometimes write something and then say, "Oh, that worked great in my novel or short story or whatever"? Do you ever steal from one piece and put it in another?
Sort of. Not typically with like a review or like, a non-fiction, like sort of the more reporting side of it.
Yeah.
But because, I'm thinking about like those things differently, ideas will come, not typically the writing, but ideas. But sometimes like I'll be reading and it's sort of like a voice will like strike and I'll
Hmm.
start something like an idea and I'll just like start something and it sometimes will end up being like wildly outside of like sort of that horror romance type of stuff that I write. But usually what I find then is that I'll just kind of put it aside and then I'll come back to it and I'll be able to make it fit somewhere else really beautifully. And so I think
Yeah.
that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't do this, but I'm trying to be a little bit more tactile. And it was interesting in the interview, he was talking about how he handwrites the first draft. But, I've heard too of other authors who, when they read other works and they find a really great prose or really great quote, they'll write it down. And I really like the idea of sort of making it a permanent thing as opposed to in the digital space. I think it sits differently in your memory. And then, later it's reconfigured and reshaped into something that you can then present as your own work. I
Hmm.
think
Yeah.
that that's everybody does that. Like, no story is brand new and unique.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've all
Yeah.
been told.
Yeah,
It's just
Yeah. Just
it's all
yeah,
the
that's I
yeah.
tell people
composed
all
of
the
what you need.
time. I just really am writing the same book over and over again. I just use different words.
Yeah,
So, uh, so Anthony talked about how he walked away from the Alex Rider series, which is massively successful, still successful to this day. And it wasn't because he ran out of stories, but because he felt like he was no longer qualified to speak inside the heads of 10 to 15-year-olds. So, are there internal signals that writers should watch for to indicate maybe it's time to move on, even if it's something they're doing is profitable or successful?
That's a good question.
Well, that's
I
why
mean,
we're here.
I definitely think that there's something to the idea that if something no longer like makes you nervous, it's probably time to like let go of it. Meaning
Hmm.
like, you talk to a lot of writers and they'll say like, no matter how successful they are, like they'll write a book and they'll just be like, God, I don't know if I don't know if I still have it kind of thing. Like you question it. Um,
Yeah.
so I guess like if you feel too comfortable with it, maybe it's time to.
yeah. I think too, like you can grow out of a voice. You can
Mhm.
grow out of, that character. And in this case, maybe didn't feel qualified because of life experiences that continued to create that separation between the original voice and staying true to that and having all of the baggage that you as the author carry that have changed you over time. It can be really hard to get back into that mindset and that framework. And I think that while you can do that, there can be some instances where maybe that just doesn't work. Maybe you feel disingenuous, and maybe that is the time to move on.
Yeah.
I think that that was a wise decision on his part, and I think it's hard to really say whether or not someone, should walk away from something or not. It's just based off of their comfort level and their distance between that voice and where they are currently, and if they feel they can go back to
Yeah.
it or if they have to move on from it.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think like you kind of see that a little bit. It's not exactly the same, but a lot of wildly successful YA authors are now going into adult fiction. And I think probably for similar reasons, right? Like recognizing that their audience is no longer the teenager, like their
Yeah.
audience has aged with them. And so, you're kind of doing a disservice to the genre if you continue to write like YA that's geared towards an adult audience because that's not who YA should be for. So, I mean, I guess they're sort of in a way doing the same thing that he did, saying that I'm no longer writing to that voice. I'm no longer writing to that audience.
Yeah.
I think it's smart.
Yeah. I guess. I'm in that crowd that thinks that he should do at least one book, at least a callback at some point to let the world know whatever happened to Alex Rider. And maybe that's the final book or whatever. But all those kids who grew up reading that character, they're going to have that question.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. Like, then you got to, like, I don't know, man. Sometimes.
Well, he can write him as an
to
adult now.
fade
right?
to No, I know, but still, it's a little. I mean,
Alex
you know,
Rider
they're gonna have
missing an eye,
preconceived
missing 3
notions
fingers
about
off his
who
left
he
hand.
should be as an adult. I don't know, man. I wouldn't. I just fade into the sunset gracefully and elegantly.
Kill him off as a teenage hero.
Perfect.
And on that note, Kevin is up next week.
Well, next week we're talking to Dominique Rocca from Source Books, and we're going to talk about how she and her team grew that platform from indie to big 5, actually knocking some people off the pedestals. So you're going to want to tune in for that. There was a lot. This is a great interview, so a lot of fun to do. So join us for that one next week, Dominique Rocca. And if you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersincpodcast.com, sign up now, and we'll see you next episode. Have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.